okay?
Yeah. No less. I mean,
I left right after Torah reading.
yeah.
Nobody's on yet. I'm just surprised.
Well, they figured you were going to be late, I guess.
I told them 8:30, as close to 8:30 as possible.
Just
Yeah.
chill. You don't have a lot of choice.
What?
I said, just chill.
Yeah.
And you're sure you went to the right site, right?
Yeah. All of a sudden, it just seems close, larger.
Because you have other people on?
No, I'm just saying. It just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Okay.
Maybe, could I have moved? Could it be where the screen is, or what the camera is taking in? Okay.
I'd rather you not be showing the doorway though, because then people see me coming and going.
Well, you don't. If the door is closed, they're not going to see you coming.
Well, sometimes I have to.
So instead, they see the mess on the
bed.
On the bed. All right, we'll deal with you. Well, that you could have left.
So what do they see? They don't see it.
Honey. Okay.
Another?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go have some breakfast.
Good morning, Harvey.
Good morning, Rabbi. How are you?
Okay. I figured some of the other fellas would be on already, but that's good.
No, not yet.
I left davening after a Torah reading, so
Let's see what we're up to. Today is the
so
11th, 20th. I got to go on to that Young Israel site and get a copy of the new one.
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna get underway momentarily then.
Okay.
All right, Marvin is here. Aunt Mendy, okay. I'm going to start the sponsors and then hopefully some of the other fellas will have gotten.
Kenny, yesterday, was there a problem at the end of the Daf? Because I lost power. I lost the picture altogether.
Oh,
yesterday.
really?
At the
I
end.
had some power problems, flickering power lights at the end.
Uh-huh.
I'll quickly review and then we'll jump in
Okay.
today.
Okay.
I usually try to do all right.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. All right. So our sponsors, Dr. Paul Koningsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labush, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara, Nisan ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yosef David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi. Friends of Toby Paris, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov. Friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef. Friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon. Shall share her children and grandchildren in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Arav Akiva. Marcia Federbush and family in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel ben Harav Shimon. Okay, then we get a month of learning sponsored by Chaim Phyllis and Phyllis Reese, ending today. Memory of his father, Mordechai ben Yom Tov Lipa. Also a month of learning by Phyllis and Chaim Reese in memory of her father, Pinchas ben Avraham. And today, also a day of learning by Ralph and Honey Chaffetz in memory of his mother, Esther Liba Bas Yehoshua. On Shabbos, there's a day of learning by Jay and Florence Levy in memory of his mother, Yita Bas Rav Ephraim. Okay. Shema's Heaven Aliyah, Kranka Rafia, Valti Yeshira Shema Tzliah, and L'chol B'nai Israel, a good Gaben Shtiyar. Okay. Okay, we were finishing up on the bottom of Yud Tet Amud Beis, just to go back there for a moment. Okay. Okay, towards the end of the Gemara, we were talking about this needle that was found in the flesh of the animal.
Right.
And what happened the situation if the Kohen, let's say, using a knife to remove the flesh, okay, is the knife tameh? Is the Kohen's hands at least tameh? Right? That was what we saw there. Okay? And the Gemara ended there on the bottom of Yud Tet Amud Beis, where it told us the following. V'chol davar she'ein bo da'at lisha'el. Okay, you can't ask the knife or ask the needle what its status is. bein b'reshuta rabim, bein b'reshuta yachid, sfeiko tahor. That's what the Gemara says. Regardless of whether it's in the private or public domain, because it's doubtful, we consider it tahor.
Right.
Okay? That would be the point. Okay. So, did that dispute the idea that the Azara was public domain? Okay. Mishum dahave safek tuma haba'a biyadei adam. Why? Because we say that when there's a doubt concerning an item, in this case the knife, right? When it's the public domain, we say it's tahor. Mishum dahave safek haba'a biyadei adam. Okay. Were it to be in the private domain, we said it would be considered tameh. Then, va'amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan says as follows: Safek tuma haba'a biyadei adam. Okay, that when it comes again, a doubtful question of doubtful tuma, okay, by the action of a person. Okay, we go over now to where we left off yesterday on the top of Kaf. Right? Nishalin alei. Namely, we can ask, and who do we ask? The Beis Din, okay, for a legal decision in regards to the status of the object. Afilu bekli hamunach al gabrei karka. Even when it's a utensil that's found resting on the ground, right? Kedavar sheyesh bo da'at lishael. And therefore it is treated like something that can be asked. We don't ask the inanimate object, but we do ask the Beis Din. Okay? And if that's the case, okay, if we say that the Azara is considered like a private domain, then the knife certainly is to be considered tameh, because it had contact with the tameh needle that had been in a house with a corpse. Okay, so that's where we ended yesterday. We now pick up, okay, with the Gemara coming back to our earlier discussion. Okay, if the Azara is public, we said it doesn't make the knife or the Kohen's hands tameh. Okay? But nevertheless, we said that the flesh of the animal is tameh. And so that's where we're coming back. V'habasar tameh. That's what the Gemara told us, right? That was Rabbi Hanina's statement. Hi basar, the itkasher b'mai, asks the Gemara. This meat, by what way did it become suitable, right? Remember we were talking about machshir. So here, was there some liquid that impacted on this meat to render it tameh? Is the Gemara is asking, what made it susceptible? Inema de itkasher badam. If we're saying that it became susceptible by means of blood, and remember, blood was one of the 7 liquids, d'Rabbanan, that was machshir. Vaha amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba. But, says the Gemara, don't we see that it was stated by Rabbi Chia bar Abba, amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, minayin ladam kodshim she'eino machshir. How do we know? He says that the blood of holy offerings, okay, doesn't render something susceptible to tumah. Shenamar, as it says in the pasuk, lo tochlenu ala aretz tishpachenu kamayim. Right? You shall not eat it. You shall spill it on the ground like water. Okay? Dvarim, chapter 12 says the Art Scroll note. Right? Namely, and darshaning that, okay, what does it mean? Dam shenishpach kamayim machshir, namely blood that flows like water, Okay, once it's spilled on the ground, that's machshir tuma, as water does. V'she'eino nishpach kamayim, the blood that doesn't flow, that doesn't, okay, come out onto the ground and flow like that, implying, for example, the spurts of blood that first come out that are supposed to be caught in the bowl by the Kohen, okay, that would not be considered dam machshir. Okay? Ve'ela rather, says the Gemara, de'it kasher b'mashke beit mitbachaya. Know that it can become suitable for tuma based on the liquids from the slaughterhouse. Namely, you have water, for example, that is around there to wash down the meat. So that water coming off the meat might render the meat machshir, tuma, but it's certainly going to mix with some blood, okay? And so therefore maybe that combination is machshir, which we saw before, okay? Vaha amar Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina. But again, didn't Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Chanina, say as follows? Mashke beit mitbachaya, lo dayan shehein dachan. The liquids, right, that come from the slaughterhouse. It's not sufficient. It's not enough that they are tahor. Ela she'ein machshirin. But not only that, they also are not machshir. They also don't render suitable to tuma. Okay? So therefore, it can't be the water in that case. So let's try another attempt, another explanation, says the Gemara. Ve'ela, but rather, de'it kasher b'chivad hakodesh. But they become suitable for to be tameh because their status is upgraded because of the esteem, the honor that's given to holy or sacred objects. Let's make a quick parallel to clarify. The same way that water washes, right, after the meat is salted, it gets it prepared, ready to be cooked, okay? So in other words, it finishes the process. We might say that if you take a piece of meat and you raise it to the status of being kodesh, therefore it's also been prepared. It's finished its status to be ready to be put on the mizbeach. Maybe that's the reason that we could argue that that meat therefore is machshir. It's suitable for tumah. So the Gemara continues, Amor, okay? I would say there here, in this case, the mahanya le chibat hakodesh, okay? That maybe then, this is the reason that it's susceptible to tumah, because it's ready to be sacred food. But the Gemara answers us and says, Ifsule gufe, okay? That maybe in this case, okay, it might only render it holy enough to become unfit for consumption, right? To make it pasul itself. Lamimna beirishon v'sheni nami, but to make it equivalent, okay, to become first to second degree tumah, or second to third degree tumah also? Is that possible? Asks the Gemara. Tifshot debai reish lakish. You should use that idea, says the Gemara, to resolve a question that was asked by Reish Lakish. Namely, the following. Tsarid shel menachot. Okay? If you have a lump or a mass, okay, in the meat that is supposed to be offered as a mincha offering, okay, or in the uh, flour, okay, that's in the mincha offering. Monin bo rishon v'sheni olo was his question. Do we count this as a first or second level tuma or not?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? All right.
Fine.
Okay. All right. So Reish Lakish's question was, if you find a mass or a lump in the mincha offering, okay, whether it, let's say the flour or whatever, okay, is that enough to say that that can render something tameh to the next level? Okay, he didn't have, okay, an answer. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, Kigon Shahaita Para Shel Zivchei Shlamim. That's similar to a Mishnah, where we learned the case of where the offering was a cow, right? A Shlamim offering, V'ha'avira b'nahar, and he, on the way, he brought the animal through a river, okay? And the animal is still wet. V'shachta, and slaughtered it. V'adayan mashke tofeach aleha, and there's still liquid dripping from the animal. Okay, it's still moist. Okay, that would render the animal's flesh susceptible to tumah. So the Gemara comes back and says, in our discussion of when we said that needle, right, was found in the flesh, what about if it was found someplace else? We said, our Mishnah, nimtzeit beferish hakol tahor. Okay, and we said that the Mishnah told us that if that needle was found either in the stomach excess, stomach fluids, or in the excrement of the animal, we say it was basically tahor, right? So the Gemara then says, "V'nahader perish v'nitmaye basar." Okay, so what happens? So maybe we might argue here, okay, and maybe that fluids of the stomach or even the excrement of the animal might render the meat worthy of being suitable, of being tameh. So Gemara then answers us, Amar Rav Adabar Ahava, B'Peres Aveh. We're talking about a situation where the excrement or the substances from the stomach were very thick, okay? And therefore, they could not be considered a mashke, a beverage, and would therefore not be machshir, the tumah. Rav Ashi Amar, afilu tema beferes racha. You could even argue, says Rav Ashi, excuse me, that if it was soft, loose, watery, these the excrement or the solutions, the liquids, right from the stomach, acids, whatever. Okay, mishum dahave mashke saruach, because then it would be a detestable, a putrid liquid, right? Okay. Now, Tani Tana Kame de Rav Sheshet. We see the Gemara now goes on and tells us that a Tana was repeating this lesson before Rav Sheshet, the following lesson. Okay? Sheretz metame et hamashkim. A sheretz, right, one of the contaminated creatures, renders liquids tameh. Mashkin, metamin etakli, and the liquids then are going to make tameh a utensil. Ukli metame eta ochli, and the utensil is going to render tame the foodstuffs inside it. Va'ochlin metamin et hamashkin. And then this Tana said that the foodstuffs are then going to render the beverages tame. Now that would seem to give us how many levels, right? Just looking over again. Sheretz is the Av Tuma. So Mashkin is 1. Kli would be 2. Ochlin would be 3. And then Mashkin again would be 4. Okay? But the Gemara then tells us, right? V'lamadnu shalosh tumot b'sheretz. But we learned elsewhere, basically, that there are really only 3 levels, okay, of tuma from the sheretz. Hani arba'ahen. Here, you've recited 4. So this is Rav Sheshet's response, I would assume, to the Tana, and tells him the following: Guz mashkin deresha. Remove the example of beverages at the beginning of the statement, the beginning of the Adraba, just the opposite, says the Gemara, right? Guz mashkin de seifa. Remove the reference to beverages at the end of the Braita. Then it makes more sense. Why? Lo ishkachan Tana de amar mashkin metamin kli ela Rabbi Yehuda. Because we don't find a Tana who says that liquids render tame a utensil except for Rabbi Yehuda. Vahadarbe. Excuse me. And he recanted about it. V'simanech niziata. And your mnemonic device to remember this is a niziata, a beer vat or a beer keg. So what's the beer vat? How many steps are in a beer vat? Number 1, you have the vat itself, and the vat is full of barley. Number 2, you've put the barley in, so that's the second step. Then you add the water, and that's the third step. So you only have 3 steps in making beer, apparently in their day. That tells you you only have 3 steps of tuma when it comes to the sheretz. Interesting mnemonic device, but remember that beer was the drink of choice in Bavel, okay, as opposed to wine in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, now we can go on, okay, to deal with this question of tuma as applied to kelim, utensils. Tnan hatam. We learned elsewhere in the following Mishnah. Sheretz shenimtza betanur. If you have this sheretz and it's found within the oven, okay? And of course there are items in the oven. What is the status of the utensils or the bread or anything else in the oven, right? Hapat shebetocho shniya. Any bread that is inside the oven is now going to be considered second level tuma. Okay? Why second level? Right? Because the sheretz first is matame, the oven. And then it's the oven that's matame, the bread. Okay? So the sheretz is the av tuma, the oven is the first level of tuma, and then the bread becomes second level tuma. Okay? Mipnei shehatanor techila, because the oven, so to speak, comes first. Right? Amar le Rav Adabar Ahava le Rava. He says to him as follows: v'nichazeh lahai tanur kiman demale tumadami. Shouldn't we see this particular oven, okay, as if it is completely full of tuma? And that's what it should be compared to, right? V'tahave hai pat rishona. And then we would consider that bread first level tuma. Amarle, okay? So he answers him, right? Rava, lo salga da'atach. Don't even consider it. All right? Don't even think that way. The Tanya, why? Because the Braita teaches, Yechol yihu kol hakelim mitam'in me'avir kli cheres, right? That utensils can become tame due to the airspace of the earthenware vessel. Talmud Lomar, as we go over to the next Amud, right? Kol asher b'tocho yitma. Why it's saying regarding the sherets, right? Namely, that the pasuk says that which is in it becomes tameh, right? V'samichle, and the very next pasuk next to it says, mikol ha'ochel, from any kind of foodstuffs. Ochel matame avir klei cheres, namely that the food stuffs can render tuma by means of the airspace of the earthenware vessel. Ein kol hakelim mitamin me'avir klei cheres. But other utensils cannot become tameh by means of the airspace of earthenware vessels.
Oh.
Okay? So that's the point. Having dealt with that subject, we're now going to put aside the subject of tuma, okay, which tells us we now go back to our original discussion, way back to our actually original Mishnah, okay? And the following Gemara comes up, dealing again with the disposal of chametz. Now you remember, okay, that Mishnah dealt with the question of two kinds. It stated, Rabbi, two kinds of chametz, or actually three kinds of chametz. We're supposed to guard the chametz of truma, since it's truma. But we have tahor truma, then we have intermediate truma, and then we have tameh truma. Okay. Now, what can be? And our discussion was what could be burned with what? Could we burn tahor with tameh? Was that a problem? Absolutely. Could we burn intermediate with tameh? That was an issue as well. But there were some who felt we could do that. So we're now going to come back a little bit and deal with that whole discussion all over again. Rav Chisda Rami Pischa Apischa. Rav Chisda raised this contradiction between two different views of Rebbe Yehuda, okay, regarding Pesach. Umeshani, and he answered it, okay, this way. Mi amar Rabbi Yeshua shtehen ke'achat. Did Rabbi Yeshua really say that the two of them were the same, like one? Or minhu? Then we'll raise this following contradiction. Amar Rabbi Yossi, ein hanidun domeh l'ra'aya. That which is under discussion is not similar to the source, right, that you cited. K'sheheidu rabotenu al ma heidu, When the sages gave testimony, what did they testify about? Im al habasar shenitma bevlad hatuma. If regarding meat that became contaminated, okay, as a second level, vlad hatuma, second level tuma, shesorfino to im habasar shenitma ba'av hatuma. If it can be burnt with meat that became, right, tame, that became, right, contaminated from a avtuma. In this case, zet tame v'zet tame. This was tame, albeit second level, and this was tame, albeit avtuma. But they are both basically the same status, tame. On the other hand, when we saw Rabbi Akiva's statement in the Mishnah, im al hashemen shenifsal b'tvul yom, regarding oil that had became impure, right, invalid because of contact with a tvul yom, shemadlikino to baner shenitma b'tamei meit, to use it at lighting purposes in a lamp that had become contaminated because it was in the house where there was a corpse. Ze pasul v'ze tameh. One is invalid and one is tameh. It's not the same, right? Af anu modim. Okay, so we acknowledge, but truma shenit ma'et bevlad hatuma. So we acknowledge, he says, that with truma that became tameh, second level tuma, shesorfin ota im hatruma shenit meit ba'av hatuma, that can be burned with truma that was contaminated with first level or key beginning level tuma. Right? They're both tameh. Aval he'ach nisrof. How is it possible that we would burn afilu tluya im hatmeya, something that's intermediate with something that's clearly tameh? Shema yavo Eliyahu v'yatarem. Perhaps Eliyahu is going to come and he will be mataher, that questionable, that intermediate truma. Umeshane, and he answers, Ha Rabbi Shimon, that is the view of Rabbi Shimon, va'aliba de Rabbi Yehoshua, okay, based on the perspective of Rabbi Yehoshua. So the Gemara then continues, Ha Rabbi Yassi, va'aliba de Rabbi Yehoshua. But what about the fact that we have a statement that Rabbi Yassi says, and that's also based on the view of Rabbi Yehoshua? The Tanya, as taught elsewhere in a Braita, Yud Daled Shechal Liot b'Shabbat. If the 14th of Nisan, Erev Pesach, comes out on Shabbos, Meva'arin et hakol milifnei haShabbat. We destroy, we put aside all of the chametz before Shabbat starts. V'sorfin trumot tmeot, tluyot v'taharot, divrei Rabbi Meir. Okay? And according to Rabbi Meir, we burn all the varieties of truma, tameh, intermediate, and tahor together. Rabbi Yossi, however, in that Braita says the following. Rabbi Yossi Omer, tahora bifnei atzma, utluya bifnei atzma, utme'ah bifnei atzma. The tahor truma by itself, the intermediate by itself, and the tameh truma by itself. So that's Rabbi Yossi's view. And he's got to base it on somebody. Namely, Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon argued with him there, no, lo nichlaku Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Yoshua, al ha-tahora v'al ha-tme'ah. Right? that Rabbi Yeshua did not have any argument in there with Rabbi Eliezer, okay, regarding that you have to burn the tahor truma by itself or the tameh truma by itself. She'ein sorfin, that they're not burned, okay, I'll say together. Al hatluya va'al hatahora, on the intermediate and on the tahor, shesorfin, okay, or that you can burn those together. Al manech laku, on what did they disagree? Al hatluya va'al hatmeya, on the intermediate and on the clearly tameh truma. Sherebbi Eliezer omer tisoref zo ba'atzma v'zo ba'atzma, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, he says you burn the tluya, what we call the intermediate,
Really?
the mixed, right? We don't know if it's tahor or tameh by itself, and we burn the tme'ah, truma by itself. V'Rabbi Yoshua, as far as Rabbi Yoshua, omer shtehen ke'achat, he says you burn the two of them together. So we've got Rabbi Yossi citing again something, okay, from in a case, okay, that also seems different. Vahamat nitin, Rabbi Yossi, in our Mishnah, we said is according to Rabbi Yossi. Hachi ka'amar Rabbi Yossi la Rabbi Meir. This is what Rabbi Yossi would be saying to Rabbi Meir. Afilu Rabbi Shimon, even Rabbi Shimon, va'aliba the Rabbi Yoshua de Mekil, according to the view of Rabbi Yoshua, who's lenient. Ki Mekil, where is he lenient? Betluya utmeya, where we're talking about the intermediate and the clearly tameh. Aval b'tohora utmeya lo. But in regards to the clearly tahor and the clearly tameh, no.
You burn them together.
Right? You don't burn them together, exactly. Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina. Okay? Different individual now, presenting another aspect of this discussion. Rami Truma Apischa Umeshani. He raised a question about Truma regarding Pesach, right? Chometz Truma, and he answers it as also. Mi amar Rabbi Yoshua shtehen ke'achat. Is it possible that Rabbi Yoshua said the two of them like one? Right? Is that really possible? Namely, tluya and tme'ah? Or minhu will challenge this. Chavit shel truma. Right? If we have a keg, a barrel, okay, of truma, right? Shenolad ba safek tuma. Okay, and that is discovered that there is a questionable tuma in regards to it. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, im hayta munachat b'makom hatorpa. If this vat or this barrel or keg is questionable, right? Truma produce is in a open, vulnerable location. Yenichena b'makom hamutzna. He should put it in a more protected, hidden place. V'im hayta megula, and if it's open, yichasena, he should cover it.
Cover it up.
Rabbi Yoshua Omer, says Rabbi Yoshua, im hayta munachet b'makom hamutzna. If it's questionable, we said, remember, truma, there's a doubt, right? What do? Rabbi Yeshua is saying you place that keg or that barrel b'makom hamutzna that was in a protected place, yenichena b'makom hatorpa. You put it in a vulnerable place. V'im hayta mechusa, and if it were covered, yigalena. Okay, you will reveal it, open it. Why? He says, grama en biadayim lo. A cause for it to become tame, questionable, to become clearly tame by itself. Grama, yes, that's acceptable. Biadayim, but to do an actual physical act, a positive act, you can't do. Umeshani, and he answered, Ha Rabbi Shimon aliba de Rabbi Yoshua. Here we have a case of Rabbi Shimon holding by the perspective of Rabbi Yoshua. Ha Rabbi Yossi aliba de Rabbi Yoshua. And here we have a situation of Rabbi Yossi holding like Rabbi Yoshua. And they seem to be teaching almost opposite things. Now, Koren, by the way, I did not see a comment on this in Art Scroll, okay? But Koren has a long comment basically telling us in short that it's possible, okay, that different Amoraim would have different Masoras from the same Tana. And that's why this is possible to occur. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to pick up and tell us again a new statement. Rabbi Elazar, Rami Truma Atruma. Rabbi Elazar raised a question of Truma in regarding to Truma, Umashane, and he answered it, okay, as follows, right? Miyama Rabbi Yoshua, Grama en biadayim lo. Is it possible that Rabbi Yeshua could have said, as a natural cause, yes, but direct cause, no? Or minhu? And I'll show this contradiction with the following. Chavit shel truma, shenishbara begat ha'elyona. We had this previously, where we have a keg of wine that breaks its truma wine, and the keg has broken in the upper part of the, let's call it, wine press. All right? What's going to happen? V'tachtah, and below, the lower part of the wine press, where it's collected, the juice is collected, chulin tmein, is full of wine that is non-sacred, and it's tameh. Okay? So with the busting of that keg in the upper part of the press, what's going to be the status of that truma wine? Modeh Rabbi Eliezer, the Rabbi Yoshua, he acknowledges to Rabbi Yoshua, she'im yachol lahatzil mimena revi'it b'tahara yatzil, that if he can save a revi'is of that wine with using a tahor kli, he should go ahead and save it. V'im lav, and if not, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, tereid v'titma va'al yitma ena biyad. He should, says Rabbi Eliezer, he should let it go down. In other words, flow down into the chulin tmein, become tameh, but he should not do a personal, actual action with his hand. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, yitma ena biyad. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, he should let it he should act. Let it become tameh by doing an act. In other words, even if he has to go and get a tameh kli to catch some of that truma wine, he should do so. Umashani, shani hata. And he answered, it's different there. Ika hefseid chulin. Why? Because there's a loss then of this wine. The chulin wine then is no longer edible, drinkable for any Kohanim, or maybe even for Yisraelim too. Now, Matkifla Rav. We saw Rava challenge this. Matnitin nami ika hefsed etzim. Our Mishnah that talked about the meat at the very beginning, isn't there also a loss there? Namely a loss, ika hefsed etzim, a loss of the wood. Amarle Abai says Abai, la hefsed meruba chashashu. The rabbis were concerned when there was a great possibility of loss. La hefsed mu'at lo chashash. But to a small sense of loss, they weren't concerned. Okay? Umina temra, the hefsed meruba chashashu, la hefsed mu'at lo chashashu. And do we really, while you're going to say that for a great loss they'll be concerned, and for a smaller loss they're not concerned? Tanya. But aren't we taught elsewhere in another braita? Chavit shel shemen truma. Okay, if we have a keg of oil, that's truma oil, right? Shenishbara begat elyona, and that cracked, broke in the upper part of the press. Ubetachtona chulin tmein, and in the lower part of the press, where the oil is gathered, there we have non-consecrated tameh oil. Modeh Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer acknowledges to Rabbi Yoshua, she'im yechol lahatzil mimena reve'it b'tahara yatzil, that if he can save a revi'is with a tahor kli, he should save it. Ve'im lav, and if not, tered v'titma, let it flow down and become tameh. Va'al yitma ena biyad, and don't make it specifically tameh by your action using a tameh kli. So the Gemara asks the following shaila: Ma'ishna, what's the difference? Shemen dara'ui lahadlik, between oil that's capable of being lit, yayin nami ra'ui leziluf. Okay, even if you have that tameh oil, it's still usable for lighting. Tameh wine is still usable for sprinkling, right? People used it to sprinkle, to like an air freshener. Okay. V'chitema ziluf lav miltahi. And if you're going to say that the sprinkling of the wine is not a valid thing, v'ha'amar Shmuel mishum Rabbi Chia, didn't Shmuel say in the name of Rabbi Chia the following? Okay, shotin milog besela. Okay, that one can drink wine. Okay, that's worth a sela. Zalfin milog shtayim, and one can sprinkle with a log of wine that's worth 2. Okay, bechadash, says the Gemara. No, we were talking about new wine. Vahara oilishno. But even new wine, okay, that was in the vat, that became tameh, so you let it hang out, let it hang around for a while. It becomes old wine. Ati Bailey date kala. No, says the Gemara, because that may come as a result of a stumbling block for the person. Namely, he might forget that that wine was impure and might wind up drinking it. Shemen nami it Bailey date kala. The oil also, maybe he might become a stumbling block. He might forget. Why? Durami le beklima us. No, the oil, he says, you would normally put into some sort of disgusting utensil. Right? That's why he would know not to use it. Yayanami Ramile B'klei Ma'us, says the Gemara. Who's to say that the wine also he isn't going to put into some disgusting utensil? Lazilav Kabaile, if he needs it for sprinkling, okay? B'klei Ma'us Ramile, would he put it then in a disgusting utensil? Absolutely not. A person who's concerned about the pleasant smell of their home because they sprinkle the wine is not going to do so otherwise. Utkala atzma tana'i. And the issue of a stumbling block is a Tanaitic issue. The Tanya chavit shel yayin shel truma shnitmei. Why? Because it says in a bright wine of truma that becomes tameh. Beit Shammai omrim tisaref chaval. Beit Shammai says burn the whole thing. Beit Hillel omrim teaseh ziluf. And Beit Hillel says use it for sprinkling. Amar Rabbi Yishmael b'Rabbi Yossi. Says Rabbi Yishmael b'Rabbi Yossi, ani achriya. I'll give a final judgment. B'sadeh tesaref chavel. Out in the field, you can burn it all. But buy it in the house, ta'aseh ziluf. Okay, use it for sprinkling. Ikeda amre bechadash. But there are those who said it was regarding new wine to saref chaval. Burn it all. Biyashan, regarding old wine, use it for sprinkling. Amrulo, and they said to him, Ein hachra'at shlishit michra'at. We say here that that third opinion doesn't carry any weight to render the decision. And we're going to stop right there, okay? And wish everybody not only a good Shabbos, but a happy Hanukkah, okay? And stay well, okay? And take care.
Thank you very much. You too. Be well.
Shabbos and a Freilich and Hanukkah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Very good.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hey.